let us all be the change that we wish to see in the world, and eventually we will live in a world that accepts others. And this is a big step, accepting others for who they are, regardless of what they want to be, and regardless of where they come from. It's really looking in their uniqueness, appreciating their uniqueness, and leveraging on their uniqueness really to grow as organizations or societies.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. This is your host Neha at peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that's specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and channel that receives more than 200,000 visitors a year, and we also publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month. We have with us today Sarah Tabet. Sarah is a human resources director with a strong HR foundation and multinational experience across the Middle East and African markets. She's passionate about HR's role in inspiring and developing people through proper coaching and mentoring to drive change across organizations. Having the ability to work with diverse teams and contribute to the global objective by utilizing the full range of HR tools, Sarah delivers efficient HR programs and sustainable talent pipelines. Her core strengths and specialties include compensation and rewards, talent and people management, coaching and mentoring, leadership development, and employee engagement. Sarah is also the author of Inclusion Starts With You, her very recently released book. So welcome to peopleHum, Sarah. It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you today.
Good morning, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure also being with you and really kind of sharing the experience and telling some stories that hopefully would be interesting for the participants with us today.
Absolutely. So jumping right into the interview, Sarah, please tell us about your work as Global Human Resources Director at Schneider Electric.
So I've been with Schneider for the past 5 years, working obviously based in Dubai, but I have been, my scope has been changing for the past 5 years, obviously leading teams that are not only based in this region, but with global exposure and scope. And in February 2 years ago, directly before the COVID hit us, I would say, I kind of moved into a global role where most of my team is sitting dispersed across the globe. So teams that are in India, in China, US, and France mostly. So it's been quite interesting, but also challenging to be away from all of them and not being able to travel and connect with the leaders that I support. So my role in Schneider is obviously an HR business partner support. So I'm a generalist, helping and coaching leaders to focus on the people agenda, how we can improve engagement within our teams. Of course, building pipelines, talent pipelines with digital, mostly digital profiles. So this is something that we've been doing. And again, I mean, it's a super interesting role, very strategic, but at the same time, with COVID, it has been a bit difficult, I would say, not being able to travel and really connect face to face with the people I support.
Absolutely, that sounds like very interesting work that you do. So how has it been different since COVID? So like, how are you continuing with your work now?
Now, anyway, my role is a global role, so I can be sitting anywhere. But the with COVID is that, again, knowing that I'm not unable to travel, the timelines, or I would say my daily job has been a bit difficult in terms of work-life balance, because obviously with the teams being globally dispersed, you have early morning meetings and then late night meetings. But again, I mean, knowing that also one of the things that I've learned to do throughout my HR career, really connecting with people, knocking on their doors. So I would say that has helped me in kind of building the connection and the relationship with the leaders, even virtually. And this is not very easy because you need to build, the trust. You need to build you need to get to know the people that you're working with, and as their HR support leader, I would say they also have to trust you, to be able to share, and to be able to work and partner with you. So I would say it's a skill that I have acquired over the years, but also that has been strengthened with the COVID and the virtual working.
Absolutely. And the fact that this is something that you used to do before the pandemic set in, now that the challenges have increased even more and you're still able to do it well, is just a testament to, how good you are at what you do. So that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, Sneha.
So your book Inclusion Starts With You has freshly come out. So we'd love to learn about it and gain some insight.
So this is a passion project that I started also with the beginning of the pandemic. Reality is, with my work with Schneider, and also in parallel to my HR support and the kind of HR space, I have always been interested in the diversity and inclusion space. I've learned a lot with Schneider about diversity in the corporate. How can we make inclusive cultures and impact and influence positive change when it comes to the workplace? With that experience and that exposure that I've had within Schneider, I realized how passionate this topic, or how much I relate to this topic itself. So I learned throughout my journey that D&I is something that it touches me personally. Within my career, within my personal aspirations, being a woman from the Middle East, who had big aspirations and ambitions to grow in her career, I've experienced a lot of, I would say, excluding behavior. From a community, from society, from people that even family members. So it's kind of a journey that I have tackled by myself, and being in the corporate and with Schneider exposed to that space, I have learned a lot how many people have their own also stories. So, and I've realized that many probably could learn from my experience, could learn that how much D&I is not only about a corporate topic or an HR topic, similarly to what we've seen lately in the corporate world, but it's really a social topic. And that's when I decided to write the book, to share some of my personal stories, but also some of my professional expertise in training leaders on inclusive leadership, on how to coach and mentor, and all of and give feedback and all of that. So it was the kind of a project that I wanted to make live for others to benefit from. Obviously, with the pandemic, things were, I would say, easy and difficult, because yes, I had more time, with the less traveling and with the lockdown and all of that. I had more time to focus on writing the content, but at the same time, it was also difficult to market it, to give it the right reach to people. So only now, after launching it in November, that I'm happy and delighted to be able to actually share that book with others. And have it more accessible globally for those who are interested in it. And yet, of course, talking about it and sharing insights and, telling people how much important inclusion as a topic is already something I'm really proud of at this stage.
Absolutely, and you have every right to be. It's actually very unfortunate that some of us have to still go through that in this day and age, especially when the world is progressing around us in every way possible. But that climbing the corporate ladder becomes difficult when you just don't fit in a way. And it's absolutely inspiring to see how as somebody who has gone through this, you're also advocating for the people who are going through what you have gone through. So that's absolutely very inspiring.
Thank you. And again, I would say that every time I talk about the book, every time I talk about inclusion, it's positively surprising how many people can relate, because again, D&I is a topic that is really a global topic, and we see it everywhere we go. We see it even in the commercials that we see on TV or on media. We see it in governments, we see it in politics. So it's really a topic that touches everyone, and everyone has a story, men or women, and that's kind of my call to highlight it more and more and show the importance of that topic and how each and every one of us has a responsibility in making not only our workplace inclusive, but really our world more inclusive, with no judging of differences, with accepting and sharing and giving that feeling and sense of belonging for people wherever they come from.
Definitely, definitely. So I would really, really urge our viewers and listeners to go check the book out because I'm sure it's going to be a gem.
Absolutely. It's now available again on Amazon. Maybe we can share the link details later. It's
Yes.
available on Amazon and Book Depository and Barnes and Noble for now. And then, as I said, working on having it accessible to everybody, even in bookstores. So just 2 days ago, I was so happy to know that the book has been made available in one of the biggest bookstores in Dubai. But yet again, we're working on making it also available in India and other countries for people who don't, who cannot order it online or find it difficult to have it
Yes.
to reach it basically.
Definitely. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So moving on, we just spoke about this and I'd like to speak about it more. So diversity and inclusion is often considered a very tricky topic because mostly our biases stem from subconsciously preconceived biases. So in that light and also using the expertise that you've gained in the area over the past several years, how can leaders practice diversity and inclusion mindfully?
Excellent question. And this year, with International Women's Day, the theme is choose to challenge, and part of the role that I have been playing is to push or provide solid actions to leaders who really want to challenge themselves and others in making in promoting inclusive behavior and becoming inclusive themselves, obviously. So a few things that you've rightfully mentioned is bias and stereotyping. And bias is definitely the roadblock, the biggest and the major roadblock when it comes to being inclusive, because obviously the way that we look at the world, it relates to how our brain operates. And we know that fundamentally, and with the psychology, we know that our brain does take mental shortcuts. And every time we look at something or we read something or we see something, it creates, even in terms of numbers, 11 million information in 1 second and translate it into 40 information. So 40 pieces of information. So imagine how many shortcuts our brain does every minute, even every second, to be able to understand the information that we get, the picture that we see, or the way that someone speaks, or when we see someone, how can we judge and take decisions quickly? So obviously, it's not. This is how our brains unfortunately work, but and we're not to be blamed for it. But the reality is, these mental shortcuts impact the quality of the decisions we take and the judgments we do when we see people or when we talk to people or when we see something. So, and this is where being inclusive, our responsibility is to understand first that we have biases, and then own those biases and challenge our mind every time we realize that it has taken that mental shortcut to judge or assume things without real facts. So this is a big starting point. And this is where today we call out for action at every, not only on International Women's Day and choose to challenge them, but really every single day, being aware that you have those biases, understanding them, realizing them is a big part of a solution. I've met many people who've mentioned, who've told me, yeah, I have a diverse family. My mom comes from a different culture, nationality, so I'm not biased. I don't have prejudice or assumptions in my mind. I'm super open-minded. But believe it or not, again, it's not because we are to be blamed for how our human mind works. This is the reality how our brain has been developed. So if you think you're not biased, think again and make sure that you own those biases and challenge them. So challenging them is by actually being aware and asking yourself every time, is my assumption based on a fact, or is it based on my mental shortcut that my mind or human decided to do? So I see some Asian looking lady, and I assume she's from Japan or from China. So then this is where why? Because my brain tells me that, if you're Asian looking, probably
Yes.
you're from China. But the reality is, this is where we need to ask ourselves, is it real? Or let me better ask, where are you coming from? Or without really assuming anything.
Absolutely. And I feel like this is a very wonderful approach towards it because, like you mentioned, we have these biases that we form without realizing. So, the first step towards actually solving anything is accepting that it exists, no matter how uncomfortable it is. So, just accepting the fact that, we might have biases and then look to work towards them is absolutely the right approach.
Absolutely. You're right.
So, to what extent do you see HR technology helping the world of HR accelerate and adapt to a changing workplace?
Now, when it comes to HR again and linking to the D&I space, we see a lot of AI transformations happening when it comes to the hiring process, especially when it comes to the hiring process, because this is where we have seen over the years a lot of bias taking place. So, simply if you look at the CV, having a picture of the candidate with the nationality, with some basic information, age, all of that, makes you as a hiring manager or an HR professional, makes you build judgments and stereotypes around this. So if someone is I don't know, if a role requires someone with mathematical skills, and we see someone from India applying, automatically there are some stereotypes that men, specifically men from India, are very good at math or computer science, and I assume as a hiring manager or as an HR, that this candidate is better than the other female who is European and comes from a different background. So, and with the introduction of AI in the way that we do our hiring processes, in the way that the selection process, at least the first stages of the selection process, is integrated within our systems, helps a lot jump those stereotypes and biases that are done at the beginning of the hiring process, and yet avoids giving people some opportunities or possibilities based on those stereotypes that are done. So unfortunately, we need robots sometimes to remind us as humans that we do have biases, and unfortunately it takes a lot of effort to avoid those biases and challenging them. So robots are going to do the role on our behalf. So we do see a lot of AI interaction and transformation happening, chatbots when it comes to also, again, a lot of roles that were usually done by shared services in terms of payroll administration, asking for a letter. So these kind of things that actually took a lot of time from humans to do, we see a lot of technology integrated there. And this is something good, because reality is it's really a complementary relationship, I would say. So contrary to early concerns where we used to think that robots are gonna take the place of humans, more and more we see that the presence of AI doesn't devalue human work. Actually, AI allows humans to work on more strategic things rather than operational and routine stuff. So it will have a big impact in the future, and more we see it now. So really the future is not the far future, it's on the really short-term future that we will be experiencing this more and more.
Absolutely. I love how you just mentioned, and I completely agree with that this is a complementary relationship and that this is not something that is going to replace us. Because a lot of people belong to these schools of thought who, fear this technology. But at the end of the day, we are the ones using it. So if we know how to use it alongside and make our work easier, it's just going to get better, because the speed at which the world is moving ahead, especially with the pandemic, things are definitely going to change, and technology is definitely going to play a very big role. So that was wonderful. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. And one more thing, I will just tell you that this is an opportunity for people, individuals at all levels, to reflect on where and how can they reskill and upskill themselves. Because obviously, many people, it's our nature to also look for our comfort zone, and is, as you said, change is inevitable, and it's happening more and more every and quicker on every. At every level. So I really invite whoever is listening to us and people to reflect at any moment that they can. Reflect what they are good at and how they can add value to the workplace or space that they are occupying. And accordingly, ask themselves if they think that their job is routine and will be eventually replaced by a robot or can be done by a robot, then they are not in the right place. And this is where it's an opportunity for them to reskill and upskill themselves in something that will add more value. So it's an invitation to everyone to look at this aspect too.
Absolutely. And luckily, we've all also been given that time and that insight into just how things can become really different, or, how the unexpected can be sprung upon us. So I feel like we should be making the most of it right now.
I'm saying that the pandemic has taught us a lot of things about how the world um, can be can change inevitably, and
Yes,
it's not
yes.
really it's not in our control. So we have to accept that many things will not be in our control. We just have to learn to be resilient, to accept what's coming our way, and learn how to control what we can control about our skills, about our possibilities to improve as people, and make sure that we are not made redundant in terms of also skills and value.
Agreed, agreed, absolutely. And with that, we are on the last question for today. So, Sarah, do you have a quote that best defines your feelings towards the future of work, workplace, and you?
Yes, so definitely I use this quote every time in my whenever I'm talking about the DNI space and the HR space. It's really a quote from Mahatma Gandhi that says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Because for me, it's really about everything. It's if you want to be more, if you want the world to be inclusive and accept you for your uniqueness and make you feel, you belong regardless of your differences. It has to start from you. So that's on the inclusive side. Even from an HR space, as leaders, as coaching leaders and individuals. Again, it's really about what you can influence, and that small change that you do will eventually create a big impact. So if each and every one of us does that small change that they wish to see in that world, eventually the world is going to reflect that. So let us all be the change that we wish to see in the world, and eventually we will get there. We will live in a world that accepts others, and this is a big step, accepting others for who they are, regardless of what they want to be and regardless of where they come from. It's really looking in their uniqueness, appreciating their uniqueness, and leveraging on their uniqueness really to grow as organizations or societies.
And also that serves a dual reason, because one thing, when we do something that is different from the ordinary, or when we just accept who we are and be the change that we want to see, not only are we asserting the fact that I am somebody unique and I want to assert that dominance, but aside from that, we also have other people who can look up to us and follow our footsteps and just be okay with being themselves. So that influential power that a person can have, without knowing, is something that can create huge ripple effects. And I feel like we should all be embracing that.
You're absolutely right. Role modeling is definitely, even if you don't inspire people to do something, a big change, as long as they look at you and they say, "Wow, someone did it. I want to do it too. I want to challenge myself, or I want to call within my space, within my influence. I can, and I'm looking at that person who's role modeling this change. It's already good enough. It's already good enough, and it makes you feel that you've achieved something, and that's enough for me."
Yes. So I don't feel like we could have ended this interview on a better note. So thanks a lot, Sarah, for being here today. It was a very insightful conversation. And some of the things that you spoke about, they're going to stick with me because they are such unique takes on everything that is happening around us right now. So thanks a lot for being here. I'm sure that our viewers and listeners will share that opinion as well.
Thank you so much, Neha, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.